Take a pack of cards, cut them, shuffle them, and deal them out. We can play games with them, create magical illusions, or use them to see into the future. But are they just an innocent pastime or a device of the devil?
Playing cards were everything that God had forbid.
People walk up to me and say, "You know you are doing Satan's work here because he lives in those cards."
From the Templar Knights to the priestesses of voodoo, the history of the playing card is a tale of mystery, mysticism, and the dark arts. What lies hidden in their numbers and symbols? And who holds the secrets of the playing card? The future may be written in the cards, but their past is not so clear. The origins of the playing card are the subject of fierce debate. There are conflicting stories that tie the playing card to India, to Persia, or to slave soldiers from Egypt. But most experts believe playing cards developed in China, alongside other games such as dominoes and mahjong.
The first definite reference to playing cards occurs in China in 1294.
China, as a nation, was the inventor of many, many items outside of playing cards. Certainly invented paper, invented printing on the mulberry bark originally.
And there are similarities seen between today's cards and those found in China 800 years ago.
There is a further support in the fact that the earliest Chinese cards known have got coins on them. And the Spanish European cards have got, of course, coins as one of the suit signs.
But it's almost impossible to trace the earliest history of playing cards.
Obviously, the cards themselves haven't survived. They are far too fragile and ephemeral.
Especially after printing was invented, you played with a pack of cards. When they became dirtier, you usually took a new pack of cards and threw the old ones away.
An alternative theory believes that cards may have been invented first in Persia. From there, they spread east to India and China, and west to Egypt. And it's from Egypt that experts believe playing cards arrived in Europe.
The cards from which European cards can be shown to have derived are cards from Egypt of the Mamluk Empire of the 14th century.
Mamluks were originally a race of slave soldiers imported from Turkey and Russia and trained as cavalry to fight for Muslim armies in Egypt. In time, the Mamluks became a powerful force and gained control of Egypt, establishing strong trading links with southern Europe.
Trade is the main way through which the playing cards arrived in Europe. We can imagine that traders in Alexandria, fascinated by this new game they saw, and finally they brought it with them to their native countries.
The Mamluk cards show intriguing similarities to modern-day cards, very clearly showing 4 suits.
They are swords, polo sticks, cups or goblets, and coins. These represent the interests and pastimes and occupations of the Mamluk aristocracy.
The game of polo was known to be popular among the Mamluks. And the sticks, or the batons, which later became clubs in the modern playing cards, appear to be a direct derivative from that. At least that is one of the theories.
The other Mamluk suits, swords, cups, and coins, are exactly the same as those that are still used in Italy and Spain today. And once playing cards had arrived in southern Europe, it seems they traveled fast.
Well, a sign of their popularity and spreading is certainly all these records we have, either laws against gambling or simple princely accounts.
In 1377, a Dominican friar, John of Rheinfeld, wrote of the appearance of playing cards in Switzerland, and accounts belonging to the Duke of Brabant in Belgium noted a high outlay for the purchase of new packs. 15 years later, in France, there is a record of a Jacquemin Grigoneux being paid 56 Parisian sols for gilded cards for the king.
This spread seems to have been very rapid and very massive. So one of the historians in Germany has used the expression Spielkarteninvasion, invasion of playing cards.
It's an appropriate expression, as armies traveling through Europe were one of the most important carriers of the playing card, from one country and culture to another.
Much easier to carry a pack of cards around in a soldier's knapsack than a chessboard or a backgammon board.
Historians believe these traveling armies were almost certainly responsible for the eventual arrival of playing cards in England.
The beginning of the 15th century saw the latter part of the 100 Years' War between England and France, so it seems more than likely that playing cards must have come from France into England in that part of the century.
And finally, the playing card was taken across the Atlantic to America, also in the pockets of soldiers and on the boats of explorers.
Cards were taken up and appealed to Native Americans too. They didn't have the wherewithal to produce printed cards on paper themselves, so you get leather cards with their own suit symbols and their own designs on them from the earliest days of colonization.
In fact, the early design of playing cards shifted and changed considerably, as different cultures were keen to stamp their own identity on the pack. For example, in Italy and Spain, cards continued to mirror the Mamluk design, with swords, batons, cups, and coins. But the German suits instead reflected the greater importance of the countryside in their culture, using acorns, hawkbells, hearts, and leaves.
People who were painting and designing cards in Europe were casting around for symbols that were easy to do and pretty to look at, and based on something they had already seen.
In France, card makers decided on a more radical redesign, using very simple symbols.
The French invention of using two colors only, red for the hearts and diamonds, and spades and clubs in black, was really a very convenient commercial consideration.
This allowed the French card makers to make cards in a simpler way, but with a better paper, a better quality, a better readability.
This experimentation in France was a success, with the result that their designs became the basis for the modern Anglo-American pack.
And the major suit systems which we now know today all became established by the end of the 15th century and have not greatly modified since.
The influence of different cultures and customs has also determined the design of the court, or picture cards. Early packs had no queens, reflecting the idea that the royal courts were a male-dominated world. One of the earliest detailed accounts described the pack as follows.
4 suits, 52 cards, 13 cards per suit, and 3 courts. But the courts he describes are a king and 2 marshals, no queen.
To this day, Italian, Spanish, and German cards have variations of the 3 male court cards, but still no queen. The exception to this rule is the French design, which does include a queen.
There are many explanations for this. A traditional one is that the French are courteous people, and French gallantry is translated into the playing cards with a queen, which is perhaps not untrue.
By the end of the 14th century, the pleasures of the playing card were causing a stir throughout Europe, and their appeal cut right across cultural and class divides. Worried that their distracting influence would lead to an increase in gambling and immoral behavior in the lower classes, church and state felt compelled